Welcome to Politically Georgia from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I'm Greg Bluestein here with Washington Bureau Chief Tia Mitchell. For John Cowan, the road to Congress has been a long and interesting one. 6 years ago, the Rome neurosurgeon ran for Congress in Northwest Georgia and lost the Republican runoff to Marjorie Taylor Greene. He emerged from that race as one of the sharper Republican critics of his party's trajectory. A lot has changed since then. Dr. Cowan returned to politics this year after Barry Loudermilk announced his retirement. He won the Republican runoff for the 11th district by a huge margin, and President Trump endorsed him after he secured the nomination. Now he's set to be one of Georgia's newest members of Congress if he can defeat a Democratic challenger in his deep red district in November. So what does his comeback tell us about where the Republican Party is headed? Dr. John Cowan joins us now. Hey, Dr. Cowan.
Hey, good morning, Greg, Tia. How are you?
Good morning. I want to start with that line from when you entered the race a few months ago. You said you're not running to be loud or to chase headlines. You're running to get the job done. What do you have in mind? And do you think Republicans and just politics in general has rewarded too many people who are trying to generate a light rather than just generate attention rather than results?
Right, just generate heat rather than light. And, these races are so hard to win and to get your name out there and your vision out there without attracting that kind of unwanted attention sometimes. And so it's difficult for someone who wants to be serious, who wants to have more than a 5-second soundbite to really get a message out of conservatism, of liberty and freedoms, but also responsibilities. There's two sides to the same coin, and they all point to our Constitution. And I'm a serious individual. Neurosurgeons are generally pretty serious, and I want to lead and govern that way. That takes time to get that message out. It takes patience among constituents. It takes time for people to listen to me. It takes time for me to do things like this podcast, where you have more than just 10, 20 seconds to get a message out. And then it takes an electorate who wants to sit there and listen to it and really wrestle with some of these ideas. And that's the beauty of the Republican Party. It has always been a party of ideas. It's always been a party in the primaries and in our conferences where we really wrestle with big issues to try to formulate the best for this country, all within the tent of our Constitution.
So, Dr. Cowan, thank you so much for joining us. There's so many questions I have for you, but I want to start with, what was your approach to this campaign? And was it different at all running in the 11th congressional district, which is a suburban Atlanta district in the exurbs and considered a little bit more moderate than when you were running in the 14th congressional district in Northwest Georgia? Did you change your approach at all?
No, I really didn't. I ran as a neurosurgeon, leader, community servant. We have a 100-year history in Bartow County with my family. I grew up on a cattle farm there, went to high school there. When I built my house where it is now, it was solidly in the 11th district. With these district lines changing year in, year out, you never know where you're going to be. I call Northwest Georgia home. It's been my home for 25 years and my family's home for over 100 years. So, I think I've just tried to stay true to myself. I would say our race this time was less about personalities, a little more about ideas and strategies and leadership styles, rather than vitriol and a lot of mudslinging. So I think, while we had a vigorous debate and brought out some things to light, it was a much different type of race than the one we ran, 6 years ago.
Yeah, speaking of that race 6 years ago, you have this unusual vantage point because you did run that race 6 years ago against Marjorie Taylor Greene. You were the runner-up to her in that Republican runoff that got so much national, kind of international attention. So what do you think has changed about the party since then? And are there criticisms you made about the MAGA movement back then that you still believe today, or do you think the MAGA movement has changed as well?
No, listen, I think the MAGA movement has matured. I think it is more open to voices, and I think people have seen that people who just get out there and throw red meat and say things people want to hear, but don't really have the ideas to back it up or sound policy to undergird that, they're just not effective. At the end of the day, particularly in the House of Representatives, you're one of 435 people. And if you go in there throwing bombs, you go in there slapping people across the face, you criticize the way they dress, walk, or talk on day one, you're just not going to be able to get anything done with them. And you're not going to be able to compel them to your side. And that's what I want to do as a leader. And we all look at the House of Representatives is supposed to represent like a house. You don't walk into somebody's house and immediately criticize their curtains or criticize, how it smells in their house. You say, thank you for inviting me. Here's where we agree. Here's where we disagree. And you sit down and you have real arguments and disagreements in the privacy of the house. And then you present to the public the final work product. And, you can't get anything done if you don't get a majority of vote. And especially if you irritate the people on your side, you're not going to get anything done either. And so I think we need more adults in the House of Representatives. I think we've seen over the past few years that more serious leaders are stepping up to do this because we've got serious problems in this country that really are best solved by the House of Representatives. We've had two presidents now who've, in their own way, have tried to legislate through orders and fiat and whatever. And we need the House to step up and do its job.
I think it was interesting. You said you made it less personal. Some of your opponents tried really hard to highlight some of your past criticisms of Donald Trump. Can you talk a little bit about, have you evolved or do you still have those same concerns about Donald Trump? And I'll start there. Let's clarify those past comments and do they reflect how you feel about Donald Trump now?
Well, listen, Donald Trump is a consequential leader, and he is a get it done kind of leader. And he's sick and tired of the DC as usual politics, that people are very secure in their positions. They enjoy the pay. They enjoy, the fawning attention of others. And he wants to get things done. And that's what I appreciate about him most. He does take his business mind and sort of no nonsense approach to things. And he does say outrageous things at times, but it's to get the nation thinking. It's to get people interested. I mean, I don't know if we've ever had a time where the whole country has been more interested in the federal government than we've had in the last 10 years. I think overall that's a good thing. Now what we need to do with that excitement and interest is we need to come in and support it with real meaningful changes to the way the House of Representatives is run and the policies we bring down the pike to make America better. And we're at this turning point in our country at 250 years where we're staring into uncharted territories. I mean, we are well beyond the lifespan of any other democratic republic that humanity has ever been able to cobble together. And we're in uncharted territories. And now at this point, we've got the excitement. We've got a leader willing to make changes. We need to support that with the House of Representatives that's actually going to bring sound conservative policies for him to sign.
You mentioned all the excitement and enthusiasm, but we are hearing some Republicans worry about enthusiasm heading into November, particularly in the Senate race. What's your read? Is there a Republican enthusiasm problem in Georgia right now?
I think the enthusiasm problem is that we've had 8 years of great Republican government in this state, and people have gotten a little lackadaisical and they're, Kemp's been there for us. We've had great Lieutenant Governor support. We've had House and Senate control in the state. My local, county commissioners have all been good conservative Republicans. And I think that's what we're seeing in the state is, we have now, for the first time in a generation, a whole new slate at the top of the ticket that will set the trajectory for the next 8 to 10 years. And I think it's taking people a little bit of time to realize we don't have any incumbents on the Republican side at the top of the ticket. And so this isn't necessarily going to be a reflex win for Republicans. And I think that takes a little bit of time. It's not reflected in the polls from a couple months ago. It may not be reflected in the polls at the end of this month. But I think, once people get their kids back to school, they get back in that fall routine and they start thinking, Kemp's not going to be there. Burt Jones is not going to be our lieutenant governor. Chris Carr is not going to be our attorney general. We've got a real choice to make between John Ossoff and Mike Collins. And we need conservative leadership at the Senate level in this state because we are a conservative state. I think that people are going to wake up and see that. I think you will start seeing those polls tighten. And I think the Republican Party has a get out the vote message that will start resonating with people over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And so I feel good about our prospects.
Do you think that Trump could do more to help out Republicans on the ballot? You know, there's all this polling that shows that not only is his popularity, you know, his approval ratings down, but that voters feel that he isn't focused on the issues, and therefore Republicans in Congress are being forced to talk about things that don't reflect the issues, that Trump is really, you know, hurting Republicans' chances, especially in these toss-up races or races in battleground states. What do you think about that?
I think certainly Trump and his apparatus can bring a lot of money to bear and help candidates get their message out and an overall get out the vote message. And so, you know, Trump's not on the ballot. So we're not making a decision about who the next president should be. We're trying to decide who the next governor and the next senator are to represent this state at high levels. And so I think Trump can come along these candidates, give them his full-fledged support, but the candidates are going to have to stand on their own. They need to get their message out there. That costs money. We need foot soldiers out there to knock doors. We need people to tell their neighbors, hey, you didn't vote the last time. You need to get out and vote. We have a lot of 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4 traditional Republican voters. I've seen the data myself. My team has been looking at it, and we're going to be reaching out to those people and say, look, you've had good governance. We've had one of the best governors in the history of Georgia in Brian Kemp. We need to continue that. We do not need to take a course correction and switch parties here with our leadership. We are definitely a red state. We need to have at least one of our senators represent those values in the halls of the Senate. And Mike Collins is the guy for the job. I mean, this guy started a trucking company. He's just salt to the earth fella. He knows how to speak to the common man, but he can go to a boardroom as well. And I've gotten to know him over the past few months, and really gained a lot of respect for him. Someone I really didn't know that well before, but this guy cares for the state of Georgia. He cares for small businesses. He cares for the farmer. But he wants to see companies like Lockheed do great, and Delta and Home Depot. He really can run the gamut of issues and represent this state in a way that I think John Ossoff can't. Ossoff's got his eyes on bigger prizes, not the state of Georgia.
Dr. Cowan, before we take a break, I do want to ask you about Republican messaging. We were both at a Republican rally near your hometown of Rome just the other day. And I heard a lot of, messaging about taxes and affordability. I also heard, to me, a lot of throwbacks, right? There was fighting about Sharia law. There was talk about socialism and communism. Do Republicans risk walking down the sort of antique aisle of politics with some of this messages? Or are they fighting enemies from an older political era while voters are worried about more pocketbook issues?
Well, let's look at the recent primary results. I mean, I think some of the DSA and some of these candidates are in our face now. And so while these have been issues that the Republican Party has historically fought, unfortunately, history is repeating itself. And we see that in times where there is some affordability issue, where there's an opportunity gap for people that people want a savior. I mean, this is biblical. You go back to the Old Testament, the Israelites we want a savior, we want a king, and sometimes we get what we ask for. But I would implore people now to resist that temptation that it's supply side economics, it's conservative principles, it's lower taxes that get us out of this price crunch that really the pandemic got us into. And these things take years to flush through the system. We've got to get interest rates down. Do not go for the shiny object with DSA or liberal policies that promise a lot, but history is replete with examples of where this fails people or it turns into a gulag. I mean, and again, we're far from a gulag in this country, but I mean, that's the end point for all of these grand social experiments, or they fail miserably in financial ruin for a country. And so it's just not the pathway. I think it is valid to bring up based on some of these primary results in other states. But again, we can't be the party of what we're against. We've got to be the party of what we're for, right? And we've got to show people that the conservative ethos, the conservative mindset is the one that has brought us 250 years to this point, and it's the one that's going to guide us steadily into the future.
Dr. Cowan, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about really about 2027, what the Georgia delegation could look like going into January of next year. This is Politically Georgia from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Welcome back to Politically Georgia. Greg Bluestein here with Tia Mitchell. Before we move on, a quick thanks to everyone who subscribes to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Your support helps make Politically Georgia possible. If you're not a subscriber yet, you can join us this moment at ajc.com/start for full access to our reporting newsletters and exclusive subscriber events. That's ajc.com/start. Dr. John Cowan may also be part of something bigger happening in Georgia's congressional delegation. 4 heavily Republican districts are poised to begin the next Congress with relatively new faces. Dr. Cowan is the Republican nominee to succeed Barry Loudermilk in the 11th. Houston Gaines is favored to replace Mike Collins in the 10th. Jim Kingston is the favorite to succeed Buddy Carter along the coast. And Clay Fuller is already in Congress after succeeding Marjorie Taylor Greene up in Northwest Georgia. If they win and if they stick around, they could shape Georgia's Republican delegations for decades to come. So what does this incoming class want to do with that opportunity? Dr. Cowan is back with us. So, Doctor, you have Jim Kingston, Houston Gaines, Clay Fuller. Have you guys all talked about coming into Congress as something of a class? Because it's been a long time since Georgia has had this many open seats, 5 if you when you include the Democratic-leaning seat that David Scott held.
Absolutely. And it is just perfect timing for me to join this class. It is an all-star class. And the beauty of it is we all kind of knew each other before we got into this. We all liked each other, had followed each other. Clay and I are good friends, friends with his family. Actually, I think Clay and I have the exact same birthday. I won't tell you who's older. I'm super excited, and the state of Georgia should be excited because we have a wealth of experience, but we also have a diversity of experience across us. I come from a medical background. We've got finance, insurance in Houston and Jim, and the military legal background in Clay Fuller. I mean, you talk about committee assignments. We all go to 4 different A-list committees, and we serve the state of Georgia well. Like you said, for as long as the voters will have us, we can't forget about the sort of the senior leadership that we've got to learn under and who are working with us with Rick Allen and Austin Scott, and we've got Andrew Clyde and Brian Jack who are there to guide us in sort of that midterm, sort of mid-career, if you will, realm as well. And so this is a dynamic delegation. And I will tell you, as I've talked to people in the state and as I've gone up to DC and talked to other incoming freshmen or other congressmen around the country, they are very excited about the state of Georgia and what this delegation can bring. And again, they're talking back to times of, Newt Gingrich, Bob Barr, Tom Price, Phil Gingrich, Jack Kingston. I mean, they're hearkening back to days where Georgia was in leadership, where it was a force for good as far as the country goes. And it's just, we have a real opportunity here to have an all-star delegation. And I think, look, we can work with our Democratic colleagues from the delegation for things that impact the state of Georgia. And so I'm excited about that opportunity as well.
So that brings up, you were mentioning working with Democrats, and I'm thinking back to the Georgia Chamber Luncheon where you, Jasmine Clark, Houston Gaines, and Jim Kingston were all on the stage together. And to me, Drew Ferguson stole the show because he started giving you guys advice and talked about, when you get to Washington, yes, we're partisan, but you gotta put Georgia first. What's gonna be your approach to serving in Congress? Tell me, what type of lawmaker do you wanna be? Who do you wanna model yourself after? I know you've talked about the other members of the delegation, but how are you mapping out how you wanna approach your time in Washington?
Yeah, look, I want to be a good servant of the constituents' trust and their treasure, right? I mean, we are a taxpayer-funded entity in our congressional office. I've told anyone who is thinking about even working for me in our district office or even potentially in D.C. that this job and this role is a privilege, it is a trust, and it is service first. And that it's not your right to be in this position. It is not something that once you get hired on or whatever, you're there forever and you can't be removed. And so that will be it. It'll be service first, really trying to listen to constituents' needs, providing great constituent services to Georgia 11. Then, as a broader approach to that, how do the interests of the states affect the people in District 11? Because we don't live in a silo, right? People live in our district but work outside our district, and vice versa. And so it is incumbent that the whole Georgia delegation work together on meaningful policies where we can. Look, there's gonna be places where we differ, and that's fine, right? That's how the process is supposed to work. But when it comes to things about job creation, about bringing money back to the state of Georgia, allowing our state and local officials to develop projects as pilot projects, particularly with healthcare or with infrastructure, we've got to be on the same page and recognize that what we can bring to certain parts of Georgia are going to be good for all of Georgia. And so I really look forward to working with the entire delegation, and I want to take that approach. I treat it, I run my medical practice that way. I don't care the color of your skin. I don't care your religious background. I have my own opinions on certain things, but I'm going to take care of you if you're suffering, and I really want to be there to help you out. And if I can convince you that a certain way of doing things policy-wise is better, then that's great. If I can't, we're going to agree to disagree, move on, and find common ground where we can.
Bringing the Hippocratic Oath to Congress.
Do no harm.
Yeah, do no harm. Congress rewards longevity. Do you look at this group, this bipartisan group of newcomers, but also of folks like Congressman Jack, who are not veterans, but also already kind of showing their clout in Congress? Do you look at that group and see a sense to build a new center of gravity in Georgia, so long as some of these new members actually stay in Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, every 2 years we're going to stand for re-election. It's not, no one's getting coronated here, but I think if people do a good job and people want to, they will be rewarded with a re-election. And again, I think if we keep a servant mindset, that can happen. I've met with pretty much everybody in the delegation. There's just not a lot of egos. Everyone is interested in everybody else's success. And particularly the 4 new guys, we've committed to try. We know that if we make each other successful, that's going to help the state of Georgia, and it will help our own individual districts. So like I said, we have a real, just like in the state, the top of the state ticket, we've got a real opportunity to set the trajectory for the next 10 years for the state of Georgia. This congressional delegation has a chance to set the trajectory for the next several years for how the state of Georgia is viewed nationally, but also what we can bring back to the state of Georgia. I tell people all the time, though, I'm going to govern not for the next election, but for the next generation.
I thought it was interesting in this campaign season. The conventional wisdom was in a Republican primary, if you didn't have Trump's endorsement, if you didn't cling closely to Donald Trump, you were toast. And you were one of the few Republicans in a competitive primary who defeated that. You did not have Donald Trump's endorsement. He didn't endorse anyone. But again, not only did you not have the president's endorsement, but you had your competitor every day emailing constituents of your criticisms of Donald Trump. Why do you think your race was different?
Well, look, I get criticized by people all the time. I mean, my wife and I, we sharpen each other daily, right? And I just view that's how you get better. And so Donald Trump has a thick skin. I mean, he really does. He wants to be better as a leader. I want to hear from him as a leader. What can I do better? How, maybe I could be bolder in certain aspects of the way I govern. I think this is the Republican principle of iron sharpening iron. And I think the voters realize that, and we put way too much weight on throwaway tweets and Facebook comment sections, rather than looking at the content of somebody's character, their lifetime of experience, how they've led their life, how they've raised their family, what they've done for the community. And I think that's what the voters said, is we want someone who is going to step up and serve, who's demonstrated that throughout their life, who brings a level of expertise to the office that we've not had, and that we need, particularly in the Georgia delegation, with others stepping down and nationwide, lack of physicians joining Congress. 20 cents on every dollar is going for healthcare now. We need that. And we've got that person with the unique capability of, he's thrown hay bales and he's removed brain tumors. And he loves this district. He's got a 100-year history here. So I think that's the message we got out, that I'm going to be a servant leader. I'm not going to let a few past tweets and moments of me getting on social media, get in the way of that. And the president, when he called me after my election, said as much to me. He's like, John, I know you've said bad things about me in the past, but I'm ready to work with you going forward. And I said, yes, sir. I want to form a more perfect union. That's what we're charged to do. And I'll commit every day to do that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cowan. That's going to do it for today's edition of Politically Georgia. If you found us on YouTube, welcome to our channel, and please click the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You can also follow the Politically Georgia podcast on Apple, Spotify, or any podcast platform. Wherever you're listening, we always appreciate your comments, ratings, and reviews. We'll talk to you next time on Politically Georgia from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Thanks for listening to the Politically Georgia podcast. Our executive producer is Shane Backler. AJC's head of audio is Sam Stamler. Production support from our partners at Goat Rodeo, including Kara Schillen, Hazel Hoffman, and Max Johnston. For more of our political coverage, visit ajc.com/politicallygeorgia, and we invite you to support local journalism by subscribing to the AJC. Join us again next time on the Politically Georgia podcast from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.